Hey guys, what is going on? This is Applegeek, and Apple has just released iOS 12. It's the fastest and most stable iOS update ever, but it all comes at a price, the battery. So today I want to share with you guys some tips to help you improve your battery life on iOS 12. Now I will say a lot of these tweaks are completely new, so they're not completely foolproof. I made a whole other video about the tips and tricks that have stood the test of time, and I'll leave that in the description if you want to check that out. If you haven't watched that video first, I highly recommend it, but if you're still not satisfied with your battery, here are some more tips for your device. Alright, so first things first, inside of settings on a device with Face ID, in here of course you have your traditional options for your biometric security. If you want to save some battery life with Face ID, you can turn off the attention aware features. Now it is recommended that you keep on this one, which says require attention for Face ID, but the second one, the attention aware features, you can go ahead and turn that off. This will turn off things like lowering the volume of alarms when you're looking at the screen, but you can turn this off to save some juice. Alright, next up in iOS 12, you do have some new options inside of Siri and search. Now, because Siri is enhanced in iOS 12, they actually made a whole bunch of suggestions here, and the apps are all turned on by default, and going through one of these and turning them off one by one is just not very good. So you can actually just turn off these master toggles up here so that Siri is not always searching in the background for suggestions to show you. Now in iOS 12 we also do have some new battery features. So battery health is officially out of beta, so you can check your battery capacity inside of this setting pane. Now if your battery capacity is pretty low, like say under 80%, I do recommend to get a battery replacement. That way your battery life can improve dramatically, because then your phone will be able to perform like new with a new battery. Alright, so back inside the battery pane, you can see that there is much more of a detailed graph to see how much you've been using your phone and how your battery diminishes over a certain period of time, which is pretty dang cool. It shows you the apps that you use the most. So here you can see how much time you spent inside of these applications, and it's pretty cool too because you can select different parts of the graph to show you what is what. So if you see way too much battery usage for one day, you can go ahead and click on it and see what is causing that drain, which I think is really helpful. Alright, next up inside of privacy, and scroll all the way down to analytics. Now there are quite a few new options in here, some of them on by default, so you can come in here and turn these off if you want to save some battery. Now scrolling all the way back and scrolling down here to passwords and accounts, you can go ahead and check out this fetch new data tab right here, and this will tell you which email accounts you have set up and what they're doing. Now by default the push setting will be turned on, so I highly recommend you guys turn off push and make sure everything is on a fetch schedule, which I have set here. So fetch basically sets a timer for when it actually looks for new email instead of just always receiving new email. You can change it to automatically or manually, hourly, whatever you'd like. However, just be sure you turn off push. That's the biggest battery drain here. Alright, next up inside the phone tab, there is a option called calls on other devices. So basically what this means is that it'll forward any calls you get on your iPhone, your main iPhone, to your Mac or iPad or other devices you may have. Now there is a similar option inside of the messages settings called text message forwarding. It's basically the same concept, but with text messages, it'll send text messages, forward it to your computer or other devices, and you can go ahead and turn that off if you don't use it to save some extra juice. Now scrolling all the way down here to Safari settings, if you don't use Safari, obviously this is not really going to pertain to you. However, if you do have third-party browsers, you will have similar options inside of those settings, so be sure you look through those browsers and make sure they're not tracking you when you don't want them to. So here inside of the Safari settings, you have things like suggestions. I don't really need that. Search engine suggestions is when you start searching stuff, it'll show you what you might be searching for. I'll keep that on because I actually do use that. But things like quick website search, you don't really need that. Same thing with preloading the top hit. And also scrolling down, you have some privacy and security options. There's not much of an impact on battery life here. But for example, you're not a fan of Apple Pay and you don't use it, you can turn off check for Apple Pay to save you an extra process. Now in iOS 12, Apple did make it easier to swipe away applications in multitasking, just like you would on the older iPhones. Now you can just swipe up on the top-notch iPhones. However, this actually doesn't improve your battery life because iPhones already have pretty good RAM management in the background, so if you do need more RAM, the iPhone will automatically clear those apps out and you don't have to worry about them. Clearing those apps out and then reopening them again later in the day just uses more and more battery life. Only time I recommend clearing apps out is if it gets stuck or if it's a game or something like that uses a ton of RAM, but otherwise it's not a big deal. Alright, the next thing I see a lot of people do, or should I say don't do, is to update their applications inside of the App Store. There's a lot of different apps in here that do have a lot of bug fixes, things like that, and you'll want to upgrade them because any little performance update multiplied by the number of apps you have on your device, that can add up to a lot in a couple of days. This also goes for iOS updates. If you just updated to iOS 12 and you're not happy with the battery life, keep an eye on the software update section of your settings app. So if there are any new updates of iOS 12 with battery improvements, performance enhancements, bug fixes, you'll know right away. Now I do have a few more tips for you guys in this video. Is if you go back to general inside of settings and go to accessibility, the panes here have been reorganized. And along with that, we do have the return, or at least the relocation, of the reduce transparency tab. So if you go ahead and turn this on, you'll notice that a lot of things are darker. It's not exactly a dark mode, but it does make backgrounds darker, makes them easier on the eyes, and because of that you won't be using your device's backlight as much, saving you battery. Same thing with the other options like increase contrast and reduce motion, reducing animations and contrasts across the board. That way you're not spending battery on animations. Now if you really want to get rid of the sensations from your device, you can turn off 3D touch completely here. This will eliminate a lot of the vibrations you feel on your device. So if we turn that off, we no longer have the 3D touch features on the icons, which may or may not be helpful depending on whether or not you actually use this feature. And another one in here is shake to undo. So basically when you're typing in a text field, so for example if I'm typing here inside of iMessage and if I want to quickly undo that, I can just go ahead and shake my device and undo typing, and if you want to redo it, you shake it again. Now I do find this a little bit annoying because sometimes I may not want to have this feature on. If I accidentally shake my device or wiggle it in my hands, it just pops up and it's just really annoying. Now if the vibrations on your iPhone is not strong enough or you just don't like the vibrations, there is a master control here that you can turn off every vibration, including little taps that you get when you turn on toggles and things like that, including the 3D touch vibrations. So if you're not a fan of the haptic feedback, or perhaps it's just not strong enough for you to actually feel it, there is a master control to turn that off. Anyways guys, that is all we've got for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you want more tips like this, be sure you check out the video in the description, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. I've got lots of new iPhone content coming up in the future, and you don't want to miss out. But anyways guys, if you do subscribe, I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.